Hello my friends, welcome back to another video. Today we're going through a tutorial on how to paint a castle with acrylic paints. We're hanging out in the Bavarian Alps today because this is a recent commissioned piece that I completed of the Neuschwanstein castle. I don't speak German, so hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. But what a cool castle. I've never been there in person. But today I wanted to share a little bit more of the process that I used, the colors I chose, and some basic tips to help make a castle more lifelike and three-dimensional in acrylics. So let's get started. As a very first step, if it helps, start by sketching the composition lightly on your canvas with either a pencil or a marker. This provides a guideline and helps plan your painting. But after that, the first step I take, whether I'm painting a structure or a landscape, is to begin by blocking in the basic shapes and colors of the object. I'm not worried about any detail at this point. I have found that starting with these midtones is a great way to begin because it gives us a good foundation and starting point and helps create a balanced composition. By using a lot of midtones initially, this can help accentuate the focal point of the object because then you can begin working on the contrasting, darks and shadows and lighter highlights later on. And this is exactly what we are doing right now with our castle. There's no need to stress here. We're just blocking in some basic shapes and colors. I'm using a combination of Payne's Gray, Mars Black, Titanium White, and Raw Umber here. I'm not worried about mixing one solid color. There's going to be a lot of textures and details to come, and I like seeing a little bit of each color coming through. So just work on laying down that first spread of paint. Now, as I start working on the front entryway or the front wall, on the palette, some of the colors I'm using here are burnt sienna, yellow ochre, raw sienna, and titanium white. The colors I use for the more tan-looking brick and material are yellow ochre, raw sienna, and titanium white. And for the roof, the shingles, turrets, and the tower caps, I used Payne's Gray, Mars Black, and Titanium White. As I've already discussed, we had applied the midtones down, so following the same process, it's layer upon layer using some of the darker values now and colors to create the depth and shadows and start introducing more texturing and details. One thing about acrylic paints, and they're awesome, is that it's all about layers. If something doesn't turn out quite right, it's okay. Once it dries, which it will dry fairly quickly, you can go over it and add an additional layer or a shadow or another highlight. Even if you feel like you've made a mistake in air quotes, no worries. Just add another layer of paint. And here on the castle, that's what we're doing anyway. We're trying to just build upon the midtones in each layer to create more depth and texture and details. This castle is a blend of different architectural styles like Romanesque and Gothic with, the soaring towers and spires and the limestone facade. It really does have a fairy tale-like appearance, which makes it really fun to paint. As we work on our castle today, or any object, it kind of begs the question, what makes an object three-dimensional, or how do you paint an object to make it look three-dimensional? I think there are a lot of different elements to that, understanding proportions and perspective, using a good color scheme and shading techniques, of course. But I think one of the most critical pieces is remembering the values and understanding where to put shadows or areas facing away from light and where to add the highlights. or areas that would be directly hit, by sunlight, and using lighter colors. And when all of these things come together, that's when an object becomes three-dimensional, and it's a lot of fun to continue practicing those different techniques. Keep in mind where your light source is coming from. The sun is coming from the left in our painting today, so we want to be sure shadows and highlights are applied appropriately, and being aware of the light source really helps bring a structure to life and gives it that three-dimensional look. For example, this part of the wall is facing the sun. There are some archways engraved out of the stone. There aren't very many dark shadows there, and so some of the colors I used are raw sienna, raw umber, and titanium white to try and get a lighter tan color to depict some of those lighter shadows. In my opinion, we're getting into some of the funnest parts of the painting, which is being able to grab that liner brush and add in some of the fine details along the walls and the roof. There's so many little windows and ledges, different textures in the brick and the stone. Up on top, you have the balconies and pinnacles and sculptures. And so spend some time here, have fun. There's no need to rush. Work on adding different highlights and shadows, different details. For this particular painting, I used a lot of different reference images, and I did that in order to most accurately depict all of these elements, and studied them a little bit to use the correct colors and dimensions. As we approach the end of our castle today, I just wanted to reiterate the tips for painting a successful castle. It's starting with the midtones. Start with midtones to create a balanced composition. Next is layering. Again, acrylic paints are great for layering. Use this to your advantage to add depth and texture. Third, be aware of that light source to correctly apply shadows and highlights. And finally, the details. Spend time on the fine details to bring your painting to life. I just wanted to say thanks for watching, guys. This was a super fun painting to work on. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more tutorial style videos like this. I'm always looking to provide different content with each new painting, whether that's a time-lapse, a tutorial, or even a product review. Please subscribe if you'd like to continue following along. I appreciate all the support. Thanks, guys, for watching. Take care.